Okay, welcome to this new business studies video on how to construct a 9 mark for the new Edexcel GCSE specification. So, as we know, the actual marks associated with a 9 mark or a justified question are 9, and you have roughly 10 minutes to complete an answer. Okay, so the question on hand is a justify 9 mark, and what it entails. It will only appear in sections B and C of your exams, and that will be across 2 papers. So across 2 papers, you're going to have to deal with at least 2 9 marks in each paper. And it will always be a choice question, meaning they will always give you 2 choices to consider, and you must pick the best option for your business. There's no requirement to consider both options, so I always suggest to my students that it's best to consider one option and analyze that fully, both positive and negative elements of it. And you need to have at least 5 linked strands of explanation in there as well, okay? And we'll talk about this in a bit more detail later on in the video. You also will be answering this question in context of a case study. So a case study is usually provided for you, and you need to make sure that you refer to that case study throughout your answer. And finally, the question is related to a judgment, so it's very important that you have a judgment at the end as well, or in the middle. So when we're looking at level descriptors for this actual answer, we are obviously aiming for the top level, which is a level 3, which is 7 to 9 marks. And what I expect most of my students to do and so forth, I really get them to learn these assessment objectives. You're going to be tested on AO2, AO3A, and AO3B. And you have to meet all of those assessment objective criteria to get into that band. That's one thing that's changed from previous specifications, okay? So the first thing you'll get is a case study. And I always advise students to read this case study and highlight key terms you can transfer into your answer. If they find data in there, I usually get them to highlight the data as well, so they can use that information to guide them when they're actually going through the answer, okay? And then we have the question, and this is a very important point. Most students feel confident with a 9 mark, however, fail to answer the demands of the question. And why that is important is I've noticed from looking at papers from last year and so forth, a lot of students didn't read the question properly or didn't answer the question properly. And what happened is students who had really good exam structure and really good technique failed to pick up marks because the answer was not related to the question. So I would recommend you speak to your teachers and you find out exactly how to go about answering a question. Even if you take a couple seconds or a minute to read the question again, really make sure that answer is related to the requirements of the question. You then have to go and start your answer. Now, like we mentioned, it's either option 1 or 2. So you get 2 options in your answer, and it's always best to analyze one option in detail. So I advise my students to start your answer with a judgment. And this is more for the student to kind of stay focused on that answer throughout. And you could try that yourselves as well. Start with a judgment and then see what, and then build your answer around this. Okay. You then get your first paragraph. Okay, you get your first paragraph, and this is where you go through the advantage of your option. So make your point, and remember, your point is not your judgment. So it has to be a new point relating to the case study as to why your actual decision will be better for the business or allow them to expand and so forth. And try and pick an option. This is why I always advise students as well, is try and pick an option that you can use the case study more with. So look for those hooks, look for those details that aid you into picking that option. And you have to have at least 3 strands. Okay, you gotta have at least 3 strands. 3 strands of analysis. I get my students to do because leading to a therefore. However, you can get your students to do something else, or you can do something else yourselves. Okay. What's important on this element is always make sure it's in context. If there is some numerical data that they can use in that question, I would highly recommend they use that. The second paragraph you're going to have is the disadvantage or the however point of your option. And this needs to be at least two strands, and you can, again, you're looking at that one option that you actually were analyzing in the first paragraph, okay? Same with this point, it needs to be within context and you need to have data in there as well. So now we've got two paragraphs and we've got a short judgment. The final piece to bring your answer all together is the conclusion. And this is what I feel most students struggle with. However, we follow a technique that Tutor to You have advised, and I think it works well. It definitely worked well with students last year doing the GCSE in business. And that focuses on answering the question. So this could be the judgment you made earlier, could be the same judgment, or if you didn't make the judgment earlier, you can just write the judgment again. You justify your option, so why you actually pick that option, okay? Why you pick that option, what your decision depends on. This is a really important point, and if you look at past examiner reports and examiner training, they've really stressed the importance of this "it depends on" point, okay? And this really brings that answer to that top band. And then finally, the most important factor, yeah? So if you've got those four elements in your answer for the conclusion and you have that paragraph, you're on your way to securing top marks. One point to remember is it needs to be something fresh in that last conclusion. Do not repeat yourself. You're just wasting time and you're not going to add any value to your answer or gain any extra marks. And in this actual conclusion, you can mention the other option and mention why your option might be better and the reasons you actually went through it as well. Thank you for listening to this short video or watching this short video. Please like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel for much more videos coming up as well.